Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got another review. We're going to be reviewing this 2019 Ford Explorer Sport. So before we actually dive into some of the factory specs for this SUV, I did just want to mention that this Explorer, specifically this Sport trim, is a pretty great and comfortable daily driver that does have a lot of room with a lot of modern day conveniences for anyone looking for a family SUV that is comfortable, has room, and has modern tech. This vehicle basically definitely checks all of those boxes. So honestly, in my own personal opinion, as a car enthusiast, I'm really not too crazy about a lot of the modern day electronical conveniences that come in most of these modern day SUVs, because at least to me, they are normally just things that I wouldn't personally take advantage of. And what they kind of mean to me, that like they would just mean more things that, you know, could potentially break on me. Now, that being said, I have a 2008 Ford Mustang, and that thing has, you know, heated seats, for example. I don't even use those. So yeah, that's kind of like my opinion on these electronic conveniences. Now, this car, this vehicle actually comes with, you know, heated seats, cooled seats, and a full list of, you know, modern day conveniences, which is honestly really attractive to the normal consumer. But again, in my own personal opinion, I really don't care that much about these modern day conveniences. Anyways, I'm just going to start by listing off the factory exterior measurements and curb weight for this 2019 Ford Explorer Sport. So this SUV from factory actually has a length just under 200 inches, right at 198.7 inches. And a width of 78.9 inches and a height of 71 inches even. Now, this Explorer actually has a curb weight right under 5,000 pounds, right at 4,901 pounds. The 2019 Ford Explorer Sport also has a pretty impressive towing capacity of 5,000 pounds, as well as a ground clearance of 7.8 inches and a wheelbase of 112.8 inches. So now I know for a fact that this specific year and trim Explorer actually has a undermounted spare tire, which does free it up for a much larger cargo capacity, which I will get to in a bit. All right, so now we actually have the hood open on this thing, and I did just kind of want to briefly mention, I know I taught, actually, if you're new to my channel, definitely check out my Camaro review. I'll actually leave a link for it right now. But if you already saw the Camaro review, I kind of ripped on it for having kind of plastic all over everything, because it was a 2013 Camaro. And yeah, I mean, it's not just Chevy that's doing this, and I'm not just ripping on this specific car. But yeah, something that I really don't like about a lot of modern day vehicles is that they just have like this entire plastic cover just like right over the engine. Now, this specific Explorer does have the upgraded EcoBoost engine from Ford, as opposed to the standard V6, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And again, it's basically all covered in plastic. And the only way you can kind of really tell, besides, you know, this big EcoBoost right here, is you can actually see the little baby turbo kind of right down there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but yeah. I did just want to briefly mention my frustrations with a lot of manufacturers just covering everything in the engine bay with plastic. All right, so now I actually am going to talk about the engine in this thing. It's a 2.3 liter turbo inline-4 EcoBoost engine from Ford that is basically a 4-valve per cylinder, double overhead cam, inline 4. That is actually the upgraded engine for this year Ford Explorer. Now, the standard engine is actually just a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-valve per cylinder double overhead cam V6. And basically, before I tell you guys a little bit about the factory specs for this engine, I did just want to mention the specs for the V6 engine. Now, the V6 engine actually produces 365 brake horsepower at 5,500 RPMs and 350 foot-pounds of torque at 3,500 RPMs. So yeah, that's not the engine that's in this, but I'm going to basically just read off the factory specs for the EcoBoost right now. All right, so now the 2.3 liter turbocharged inline four that's actually in this specific Ford Explorer actually only makes 310 foot-pounds of torque at 3,000 RPMs and 280 horsepower at 5,600 RPMs. Now, yes, I know I did say before that the V6 engine was kind of like the standard engine, and this was the quote-unquote, upgraded engine. So it might confuse you guys as to why, this engine actually makes less power. But it makes less power, but the fuel economy is a lot more better for this specific engine. So that's kind of like why Ford, I guess, advertises it like that. I don't really know why. If you guys actually know of any other engines that come in these specific Ford Explorers, definitely feel free to leave a comment down below. Needless to say, these power numbers are not really impressive, especially when considering the almost 5,000 pound curb weight of this thing. But it could definitely jump out into traffic if you need to overtake someone in, just day-to-day driving. So now when this turbo inline 4 engine is actually paired with the 6-speed shiftable automatic transmission, this vehicle can actually produce a very impressive 18 miles per gallon during city driving and 25 miles per gallon during highway driving for a combined 20 miles per gallon. So this SUV actually also has a 18-gallon fuel tank, so it can actually see a range of almost 340 miles of city driving and around 470 miles during highway driving, which generally means that you might need to fill this thing up maybe every 1.5 to 2 weeks, and that's if you're commuting every day in it. All right, so before I actually get in this thing and take it for a drive, I did just want to open up the doors on one side in the trunk and show you guys all the room that's in here. Now, honestly, in my own opinion, I thought that Ford Explorers were a lot smaller than this. And when I was actually driving this before, I was amazed at how much room is both in the trunk, the back seats, and the front seats. Now this thing actually has a maximum cargo capacity of 81.7 cubic feet. So that's pretty impressive. And again, this is something that's very, very attractive to someone looking for a family vehicle. I am going to take this thing for a drive in a second, but I did just want to show you guys the space that you have in here. Like when I first drove this, I was actually amazed at how wide it is in here, and just how spacious in general it is in here. Like it's really, really nice. And honestly, if I'm going to give a completely honest opinion on it, there is a lot of plastic in here, but it's a very sleek design. And again, it's a newer SUV, so I don't know how this would last over years and years of kind of beating on it, but I'm just really amazed at how much room is actually in this vehicle. Because again, looking on the outside, a Ford Explorer doesn't necessarily look like the largest SUV out there. So now I'm actually going to start this up. It's just got a push button start right here, and it brings it's pretty cool. It brings the steering wheel down and pushes the driver's seat up. And you can also see in here, there's a touchscreen. Again, so many features, I could go on and on. And you also have cooled and heated seats, which I actually think, like I said before, I don't really use the heated seats on my Mustang, but I actually do find the cooled seats actually pretty cool, especially in the summertime. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to be taking this thing for a drive and, just telling you guys how I feel riding around in this. All right, so now I'm in this 2019 Ford Explorer Sport, and I'm just going for a little drive in it. And it's so funny because you can actually hear the little baby turbo on it almost more than the engine. And honestly, right now I'm in drive. It shifts very smoothly, and it's basically, I guess, tuned to just, cruise, to just stay at lower RPMs. It doesn't like to be revved up at all. But there also is a sport mode for this specific vehicle, and basically all it does, it doesn't increase boost or anything like that. It's not like, the Civic that I just reviewed, which if you guys are new to my channel and you haven't seen that, I'll probably leave a link for it now, like up in the top of the video. But yeah, that being said, the sport mode does actually change the shift points of this vehicle, so I guess it feels a little bit more sportier. And one thing that I found to be kind of cool is that you don't have to be in sport mode to actually use these paddle shifters. So if you let's say you're in regular drive and you're cruising in just 4th gear and you just hit downshift, it bumps it right into 3, and there's this little display gauge that actually tells you what gear you're in once you're going through the paddle shifters. Now, what I don't like about that, however, is that there's actually no way to control when it goes back into being a full automatic. So yeah, like I just said, it just went, the 3 just disappeared. Now, when there's no number actually on that little gauge, that means you're, kind of just in regular automatic mode, and it's just going to shift, downshift, do everything by itself. So one thing that this modern SUV actually does that kind of separates it from most modern day SUVs is it actually doesn't turn off at stop sign, like, red lights. Basically, I know that sounds weird, but if you don't know, most modern day SUVs are actually tuned and programmed from factory to, I believe it's called an automatic start or automatic shut off, to save on gas, which I kind of think is pretty stupid, and I'm glad that this SUV doesn't do that, because basically, yes, you're going to save fuel economy if it shuts down the engine and when you're just sitting there idling, but you're probably going to kill your starter a lot sooner than like the lifespan of your starter is probably going to get lessened a lot. Alright, so now I'm actually in sport mode in 1st gear, and I'm just going to do a little launch. There's no traffic. This thing actually does pull pretty good. I mean, it definitely is a little sluggish, but especially when you're in sport mode, the paddle shifters, the transmission's very responsive. It does shift a lot faster in sport mode. Now in drive, when you're using the paddle shifters in drive, there's probably about like a half-second delay. There's a big delay when you're downshifting and you're upshifting. But that being said, it's slow. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys. It is slow, but it does launch pretty good, which again, like I said before, the power numbers on this vehicle aren't impressive, but it does what it needs to do, and it does what it's designed to do. And it's a very comfortable daily driver. I would be very happy driving this thing day to day. But it can jump out into traffic. You're going on the highway, you're accelerating, or you're pulling in like an evasive maneuver to avoid a collision. You could do that in this SUV. So I do actually like the overall styling of this SUV. It is very modern. I really like the paint. I don't know the factory color of this specific paint, but it's a dark gray metallic, and it looks really good in the sun. But yeah, I do like the overall styling of this 2019 Ford Explorer Sport. But most of the time, when someone's giving a Ford Explorer a second glance on the road, it's because they don't know if it's a cop or not. Because you never know what is or is not an undercover cop. So that being said, I actually read an article months back, or a year ago or something like that, that said that you're statistically, now again, I don't know how true this is, but statistically, you have a smaller chance of being pulled over if you're driving a vehicle that is driven by police. So I don't know how true that is, but that is definitely something interesting for any Ford Explorer or Crown Victoria owners out there. So I don't know how reliable this specific year, this specific model is, but I can tell you guys that it is safe. It looks decent. It has a lot of room. It's super convenient to drive, and it drives very, very smoothly. Now again, I don't know how long that's going to last as the mileage increases on it, but yeah, overall I really enjoy this vehicle. I enjoy it for what it is, If you watched the end of this video, first of all, thank you. And if you like this video, definitely like it down below. It helps out a lot. And if you're new to my channel, I do a ton of different, vehicle reviews, anything from a completely stock kind of family SUV to, radically modified cars. And I also do DIY videos and car show vlogs. So if that, interests you, definitely be sure to click the subscribe button. But until the next one, guys, see ya, and thank you for the support.